Welcome back. We've been talking about how the internals of Node are structured. Now it's time to look at the code behind Node.js. As a quick recap, we saw that our JavaScript code executed in V8 will sometimes make use of these built-in Node.js APIs. And when we call one of the functions in these APIs, they go through the Node.js bindings and handled by libuv in some way. So let's explore exactly what's going on when our code goes through the flow we see here. The Node.js project is hosted on GitHub, and you can browse it by going to github.com/nodejs/node. What we have here is the actual code that makes up Node, that has enabled us developers to create all these amazing projects and websites. Things like Netflix and projects at NASA are powered by this source code. Isn't that cool? Because Node and its components are open source, we can actually look around this code and figure out how it works. Learn why things are done the way they are, and even potentially contribute new features. If you find a crazy bug that no one else has experienced, you're able to submit a fix directly to the repository here and contribute to something that has actually changed the internet. Okay, diving in, we have a few folders in the Node.js project. The two that are most interesting to us are the lib folder and the src folder. Lib over here has the JavaScript side of our Node APIs. Each module in our Node.js documentation. Remember how we had access to all these globals and APIs that Node provides for us, like the console object, HTTP, a module to get information about our operating system and access paths on our hard drive, or to get information about the process and the arguments that were passed into Node. Each of these has a corresponding file in our lib folder. We can see that there are a few folders here, but scrolling further down, we have all of these files for each of our APIs. Console. We have the file system and HTTP, all the way down to our process. Each of these files defines the functions in our documentation that make up the Node APIs. That's the lib folder. The other folder of note is src, which is the C++ side, with our low-level Node API bindings. It's that connection between the JavaScript world and the C++ world. Let's look at an example. Say we want to open a file. We know it's part of the file system module. And if we look at the documentation, scrolling down here, we'll see a fs.open function right here. This lets us pass in a path and some additional arguments. But where does this live? What's it actually doing? How does it work on both Windows and Mac OS? Well, we can investigate in our source code. We know in the lib folder there's going to need to be a file for our FS module, because that's the module that Open is part of. So we'll go into our fs.js file here. And because it has over 2,000 lines, I'm going to do a search for the open function. And I can see that one of the results is a JavaScript function, where we can follow along with the logic. We can see that we're validating the path as the first step. And then, depending on what the arguments are, we do a few different branches. There's some different options. But the most interesting piece here is this function right here, binding.open. This is where our Node.js internal bindings come in. This function will convert the values between JavaScript in our FS module and C++ over here, allowing Node to call into that optimized lower level C++ code. So we're calling the open function available in our bindings. We can now see the full implementation of this function by going to that src folder. And again, I have some folders here, but scrolling down all the way to node underscore, I'll have a node underscore file.cc over here, where cc is one of two most common file extensions for the C++ programming language. Just like we have .js for JavaScript and .py for Python. The other extension you might see for C++ is .cpp, while the H file has the headers. Usually we'll want to look into the cc file for the bulk of the code. So going into our node file.cc, we see this C++ code. And again, this file is going to have thousands of lines of code. That might look a little bit scary if you haven't done C++ before. But we don't need to know C++ to learn something from this. If I scroll all the way to the bottom of this file, and then go back up slightly, I will find this initialize function and a bunch of these set method calls. These are associating functions from JavaScript with C++ functions in this file. So remember, we were calling fs.open, which is going to call the open function with this capital O in this file. So I'll do a search for that. And one of the results is the C++ implementation of our open function. Check it out. We can look through this code and see that it's doing some validation on our arguments. But the interesting bit here is we'll see this uv underscore fs underscore open being referenced in an async call and also in a sync call. This uv underscore fs open is actually a function inside of libuv that we're saying can be asynchronous or synchronous. And exactly what the difference is between synchronous and asynchronous calls is actually a really interesting topic that we'll be going into as well. But what we can learn from this example here is that things that start with uv underscore are references to libuv. And if I do a search for that in this file, you can see there's quite a few places that libuv is being used. All right. This is getting a bit deep. How far does the rabbit hole go? Where is our open functionality actually implemented? Let's complete this deep dive into the internals of Node by going all the way into the libuv source code. After this, you'll be able to say you went from the highest level JavaScript to the lowest level internal workings of Node. This is something to be proud of. Not many people can say they've done this. So on that note, I'll see you in the next video.